Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I want to thank Rabbi Potok, together with Mitchell Gossett, president of Men's Club 2.0, for the honor of being asked to deliver the Devar Torah today. And first, my compliments to you, Mitchell, for what you've done in such a short time getting the Men's Club off to such an effective rebooting. The size of your email, Yasher Koach. The size of your email list and how many are attending men's gatherings speak to your success. Kol hakavod. Bereshit has always been my favorite book of the Torah. It is full of fantastic stories and the earliest history of our people, and never lost on me are my astonishment and amusement from the incredible degrees of family dysfunction from start to finish. When it comes to such, I always feel right at home with a lifetime of my own innumerable relatives' relationships in full view, loving and messy as they are. Even so, none of my family's stories come close to the juicy accounts of Bereshit. And Vayeshev, the first of 4 parshas concerning Joseph that close out the book, is pretty juicy. Right out of the batter's box, Jacob has a favorite son, Joseph. Let's remember only Joseph, Jacob's 11th son, and his younger brother Benjamin were full brothers from Jacob and his first love, Rachel, after she had long been barren. Jacob's special connection to these 2 sons was thus understandably unique and strong. Parents will have their favorites, but the children should never know. Jacob did not understand this fundamental principle and made his feelings obvious by presenting only to Joseph a special coat of many colors. It did not help when Joseph dreamt that his 10 older half-brothers' chiefs of the field bowed down to his, and that the sun, moon, and stars, no less, bowed to him as well. When Jacob unwisely and perilously sent Joseph to his brothers pasturing Jacob's flocks, he wore the coat and told them of his dreams, implying domination over them. It would take time before the 17-year-old Joseph became wise enough to become a great leader, but the consequences in real time produced one of the great hinges upon which all of Jewish history turned. One of my favorite short stories by the great 20th century Argentinian author Jorge Luis Borges is The Garden of Forking Paths. You become aware as you accompany the narrator that as decision points in the story come one after another, the options stemming from each pay no attention to what might be reasonable, practical, feasible, probable, or wise, but there is a result, whether made actively or passively, and whichever way, you take the path without knowing where you will be led. Vayeshev is one fork after another. Imagine in your minds that other paths might have been taken at each moment in the story with dramatically different outcomes for our people's future. Joseph's 10 brothers so envy and hate him that they conspire to murder him and throw his body into a pit. Recall that in Vayishlach last week, 2 of the brothers, Simeon and Levi, sons of Leah and Jacob, conspire wickedly to avenge the rape of their full sister, Dinah, and slaughtered mercilessly the entire people of Shechem, the perpetrator, something we are horrified to even think about. But we must accept that murder was not a foreign concept to some of the brothers. Only one, Reuben, interceded on Joseph's behalf for the pit alone. So Joseph survives and is sold to Ishmaelites into slavery, who in turn sell him to Pharaoh's courtier Potiphar. As a deception, the brothers soil Joseph's coat of many colors in goat blood and cruelly send it back to Jacob, who assumes Joseph was killed by a wild beast, and Jacob wails. What a family. But there's more, and the possible paths at each step along the way seem more improbable than ever. Potiphar takes a liking to Joseph, and Joseph stays with him and becomes our first ancestor assimilated into another culture, the Egyptian one. And Joseph was devilishly handsome, Parenthetically, many of us men might thus envy him too. And he was way too glorious for Potiphar's wife to resist, who repeatedly woos and tries to seduce him. But Joseph chooses to spurn her overtures. Had he not, what course might history have taken? Out of spite being rejected, she shows her husband a garment of Joseph's, feigning proof he has tried to sexually assault her. Joseph is jailed and gains the jailer's esteem, who puts him in charge of the prisoners. When Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker offended Pharaoh and were imprisoned, Joseph deciphers their dreams with great consequence, for the cupbearer lives to tell Pharaoh of Joseph's brilliant interpretations, when Pharaoh himself, despite counsel from his wise men and magicians, cannot figure out his own dreams of the 7 cows and the 7 ears of grain. We must await Parashat Miketz next week for the result, but suffice to say, it is an understatement that history turned yet again on Joseph's insights into the meaning of dreams. We also know that once our people had migrated into Egypt under stress of famine, a Pharaoh arose who knew not Joseph, and our ancestors were enslaved. The ensuing 400 years and eventual liberation fashioned who we are and the values we hold. We don't spend a lot of time considering that if we had never been slaves, we would likely be a very different people and very possibly not as good and compassionate at heart as we collectively are. Vayeshev roots us in how we became who we are. At this point, I'm going to make a leap in my drash away from Joseph, so forgive me for that, but the connection between what I've said so far and what I'll say about ourselves and our shul are similar. That is, it's about assessing moments and understanding consequences. The common theme is choices and paths. That great modern-day prophet, Yankees catcher Yogi Berra, said, "If you get to a fork in the road, take it. Sometimes things happen and you have no choice, and sometimes you do." My first wife and I, and yes, we're still friends, have had the same guy cutting our hair for 35 years and at the same time. He and I are very close friends, often hiking and having lunch together. His kindness from day one made him a mentor to me. I had just seen his and his wife's major home improvements a couple of months ago, and then an unexpected and unexplained fire broke out in the garage adjoining the house, and in minutes all was destroyed. No one was hurt, but all belongings and tangible memories were lost. It was emotional devastation for them. They had no choice over the matter, but my ex-wife and I did. I knew she was never one to make optional expenditures, but I suggested we email them a gift, more than anyone might have expected and more than comfortable for us. She agreed, and within the hour they responded overwhelmed, texting us in all caps, "Friends forever." My ex-wife called to say she had not experienced so much joy and giving in a very long time. Something important inside her had changed. Tzedakah, one of the loftiest words in our language, is giving, both as a voluntary act of kindness and as a moral and righteous obligation. It means giving with spirit, reflecting back to others gratitude for the blessings we are fortunate to have that others might not. Tzedakah forces us to consider what matters in service to the people we love and care about, to our community, and to the world. We may make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. There is no passion to be found playing small, settling for less than what we are capable of. Only those who risk going too far ever really find out what it can actually mean personally. I can't think of a single person I've ever known who became poor by giving, and I don't think I've ever known someone who was honored for what they received, only for what they gave. It is no secret that our shul is in the midst of an effort to raise the funds needed for a major renovation of the social hall and adjacent spaces. This is our great hinge on which Adat Shalom's future turns. Efforts to date on the part of the Social Hall Committee, of which I am a recent member, have been unwavering, and we can thank, in alphabetical order, the chair Barbara Burton, Richard Destin, Stephanie Ginsburg, Marla Knoll, Esther Margulies, Rena Lieb-Flug, Rabbi Potok, Janet Schulman, and advisor Gary Zelker. Tomorrow at the annual meeting of the congregation, you will hear a great many details and will have the opportunity to ask all your questions. Fundraising to date has been extraordinary, and we thank profusely all those who have already made generous contributions or have pledged. By now, you know about the remarkable matching grant provided by an anonymous congregant to close the remaining gap. We cannot yet rest, but hope to very soon. The Social Hall project really matters, and the effort has been huge. If dedicated committee members and donors had not burned with the desire to see this long-needed renovation come through, we never would have gotten this far. Dreams come true when we have the courage to pursue them. Sometimes one is lucky, and what you want comes to you. But most of the time, you must go out yourself, making sacrifices along the way, placing one foot in front of the other, until you realize with surprise that you've actually climbed the mountain. Why wait any longer to support what's right here? It's across the divider at the back of the sanctuary.